became Prime Minister, would you publish your tax return?
I think it's probably an imposition too far.
Okay, so
but having said that, you know, at the point I become Prime Minister, then all of my business interests would have to be passed over to a trust anyway. So I think, frankly, that's, you know, it wouldn't matter.
But you think in terms of now, tax transparency, publishing your tax returns?
It's nobody's business.
UK Connors, Rachel Reeves triple humiliation. If you haven't subscribed to UK Connors yet, now's the time, because what's about to unfold is absolutely brutal. Hit that subscribe button, because this is the kind of political theatre you won't want to miss. Right, let's talk about Rachel Reeves, the Chancellor of the Exchequer, the woman supposed to steady Britain's economic ship. Well, buckle up, because she's just been hit with not one, not two, but 3 consecutive humiliations that paint a rather damning picture of Labour's grip on the British economy. And frankly, it's getting worse by the day. First, let's address the elephant in the room. The International Monetary Fund. You know, those people who actually know what they're talking about when it comes to global economics, just downgraded Britain's growth forecast. Not slightly, downgraded it. They've essentially said, Rachel, we don't think you're going to deliver what you promised. That's humiliating for any chancellor, but especially one who staked their entire reputation on economic stability. The IMF didn't just tap her on the shoulder either. They also issued a rather pointed warning that inflation here in Britain is rising faster than in some developing economies. Peru, Senegal. Yes, we're talking about countries that are often cited as economic cautionary tales, and yet their inflation is moving slower than ours. Let that sink in for a moment. The shadow of this verdict grows darker when you consider what this actually means for ordinary British people. The IMF is predicting that Britain will have the highest inflation in the entire G7 over the next 2 years. Think about that. The highest. Not second highest. Not competitive. Highest. Which means any wage growth, and we'll get to that in a second, gets absolutely eviscerated by the cost of living. You'll pay packet rises, but you're somehow worse off. That's the economic reality Keir Starmer promised to fix, and instead, it's accelerating. But wait, there's more. Unemployment has just surged to a 4-year high. 4 years. We're talking 4.8% of the workforce now jobless, up from 4.7%. That might sound like a modest bump, but it represents 1.74 million people without work, up from 1.44 million just a year ago. 300,000 more people without employment in 12 months. That's not a wobble in the economy. That's a concerning trajectory. And the government's response? Pat McFadden, the Work and Pension Secretary, actually tried to spin this by saying the numbers of people in work are at a record high. Technically true, perhaps, but it rather conveniently ignores the massive surge in unemployment. It's the kind of political sleight of hand that would be funny if it wasn't so transparently desperate. Wage growth, meanwhile, has ground to a halt. It's fallen back to 4.7% in the 3 months to August, down from 4.8%. In real terms, and this is a bit that matters to your bank account, people are seeing just 0.9% increase once inflation is factored in. Less than 1%. After a year of promises about raising living standards, British workers are effectively treading water while the tide slowly rises around them. Now, here's where it gets really interesting. Kimi Badenoch, the Conservative leader, seized on these figures and absolutely went for the jugular. She said Labour's economic failures are making all of our lives much harder, and this is a bit that's landed. She accused both Rachel Reeves and Keir Starmer of lacking the backbone to do what's needed. That's not just criticism, that's a character assassination wrapped in economic policy. And the Tories aren't the only ones circling. The Institute of Economic Affairs is already pointing fingers at the national insurance contributions increase from last year's budget, suggesting that employers are now extremely wary of taking on new workers. The employment rights laws Labour introduced? Experts say they are hurting the economy too. But here's where the triple humiliation becomes genuinely troubling for Rachel Reeves. There are mounting fears, and these aren't whispers from the fringes, that come November 26, when she delivers a budget, we're going to see a significant tax hike. A major tax hike. Why? Because she needs to dig herself out of a massive financial black hole. She's cornered herself. The economy isn't delivering the growth she needed to balance the books without raising taxes, and now she's facing the kind of political nightmare that could define her entire tenure. And it's about to get worse. Because there's another ticking time bomb that's receiving far less media attention than it deserves. The state pension is rising by approximately 4.8% next April, a consequence of the triple lock policy, which Labour and the Conservatives have both pledged to uphold. But here's the trap. That rise will push the state pension above the £12,570 income tax threshold by 2027. We're talking about 4 million pensioners, 4 million British OAPs, potentially paying income tax on their state pension for the very first time ever. Let's be absolutely clear about what this means. Millions of elderly people who paid into the system their entire working lives, who planned their retirements around the understanding that the state pension wasn't taxable, are about to discover that the rules have changed. And if Rachel Reeves does nothing, if she allows this to happen through inaction, it's a stealth tax on pensioners by another name. It's means testing the state pension through the back door. Dennis Reed from the Silver Voices campaign group for the over 60s has already accused the Chancellor of trying to undermine the triple lock entirely, and frankly, the evidence is stacking up. Sir Steve Webb, the former pensions minister, has essentially confirmed that it's now inevitable. We can now be pretty certain, he said, that if allowances do not rise, the basic state pension will go above the income tax threshold in 2027. That's not speculation. That's a pension expert telling you what's coming down the tracks. So what we have here is a perfect political storm. Rachel Reeves is trapped between three terrible options. She can raise taxes significantly in November to close a fiscal black hole, which will hammer working people and businesses already spooked by national insurance contributions. She can ignore the pension tax bomb and let 4 million OAPs get dragged into the tax system, which will trigger absolute fury from the over 60s demographic, a group that votes in significant numbers, by the way. Or she can fiddle with a triple lock, which would breach a commitment both Labour and Conservatives have made and would expose the government to accusations of breaking faith with pensioners. There's no clean way out of this. Every option has political consequences. Every option has real economic impacts on real people. And that's precisely why this triple humiliation matters. It's not just about statistics or IMF forecasts or quarterly unemployment figures. It's about the fact that Rachel Reeves and Keir Starmer have run out of road. The economic inheritance narrative, the idea that Labour simply inherited a mess and is doing its best, stopped being credible months ago. We're now a year into this government. These are Labour's decisions. These are Labour's consequences. And British people are starting to feel them in their wages, their job security, and their pension arrangements. The Chancellor is in Washington trying to drum up investment and talk about economic stability. But the signals coming back from the IMF, from unemployment data, from wage growth statistics, and from the pension time bomb all tell the same story. This government's economic strategy isn't working. And that's before we even get to November 26th and whatever tax rises are about to land. This is the kind of political moment that defines governments. And right now, it's not looking good. So that's where we are. Rachel Reeves has been hit with a triple humiliation, and the worst might still be coming. If you want to stay on top of British politics as it unfolds, the real analysis, the context, the stuff they're not telling you, then you absolutely need to subscribe to UK Connors. Don't just watch this video and disappear into the algorithm. Come back. Watch our other videos. Let's build a community of people who actually understand what's happening in Westminster and why it matters. Subscribe now, and we'll see you on the next one.